Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Soil Matters. We've got an amazing show for you guys today. I'm just going to let Leighton jump right into it because he's working with the gentleman that we're talking to. So, guys, have a great show. This is going to be amazing.
Thanks, Ken. And as always, great to see you, Av and Mo and Gary. Welcome to the show. So
great to be here.
I got introduced to Gary through Ken, I think it was like November of last year. And I proceeded to try to punch holes in him live on this podcast and couldn't. And then requested that whoever invented this, I need to talk to him, and continued to try to punch holes in Mo and couldn't. And then was blessed to have the guys bring the machine down here to Moore Park, California, where we could actually play with it and see what the heck is going on. So it's an honor. And without further ado, Mo and Gary, why don't you introduce yourselves and let us know how you ended up here today.
Yeah, well, my name is Mohammed, or Mo for short, Memon, and I was the primary inventor of the system that we have here, and I'll go into the motivations for why I created this. Basically, wanted to move us into more organic and natural ways of fertilizing and growing crops. And we came together with our team several years ago with Gary. We have a few other members, Ron Klein, Jim Stein, and various others who we've all just come together to work on this project and began developing and perfecting it from the initial function that I had come up with. And it's just been an amazing journey, and we're glad to be here.
Hey, Mo, this is Gary Ailes. And I got involved with Mo back when I was still practicing veterinary medicine. I retired from that after 50 years. Mo had something that was getting started at the time. He'd been spending 10 years in it and hadn't created a big commercial machine yet. But I could see, even though they weren't breaking stuff down to small pieces to process, that there was something there. So we got to talking about it. I brought Ron with, and we've developed the process to where we are now. And just to give you a little bit of a history as to what brought us to this place, and by that I'm talking about what brought us to this place as a nation. And back in 1935, there was a Dust Bowl. And that occurred because of a drought, but it also occurred because of intensive farming, running the same crop year after year after year, and depleted soils had taken all of the biology out of it. And consequently, when the wind blew, the dirt moved. In 1950, when I was a shaver in school, there was still clouds of red dirt coming from Oklahoma into Nebraska. So move forward, we learned to rotate crops and let land set follow for a year. Made all the difference in the world, but the land never really 100% recovered back to what it was. And what came next was inorganic NPK fertilizer. And in 1950, when that was really coming on, what they found is they were developing wonderful plant life. They were getting great yields in the field, but there was some problems they didn't recognize at the time. And the biggest part of those problems was the fact that we were killing the soil, and all of that biology, all that organic matter was going away. And in conjunction with that, it required more and more inorganic fertilizer to keep things going. So the way things are today, there's people over on this side who are saying that I wouldn't use anything but NPK because, man, I get great yields. There's people on this side over here who say I wouldn't use that at all because I don't like what happens to the soil. And somewhere in the middle, there's a lot of people that are saying, well, I'm going to use what works for me. And that's what we hope to address today, is to give you an idea of things as they could be, not as they are.
Yeah, it's very, very well put. Thank you, Gary.
So let's just breach the surface on exactly what the process is. So can you walk us through when you feed the feedstocks in and what happens?
Yeah, so let's go into an explanation of what the process is. So the system is called the Muncher. And what the Muncher does is totally aerobically processes waste and turns it into a super nutrient rich, biologically activated fertilizer product. Right now we call it Muncher juice. And as Leighton has been doing testing, we've seen that it is showing some amazing results. Now, how the process works through a combination of mechanical, biological, physical processes. You have heat, we have aeration, we have agitation, we have the biological mixture. And then the way the system works from front to back is material is initially ground to bring down to uniform small particle size. It is then sent into a predigester or homogenizer, if you will. And the material there, we establish an initial liquid solid ratio, and it is then inoculated with the biomixture. Now that the biological mixture is all naturally occurring bacteria, microorganisms, and that material then is sent into the main digester. And from there, we run it through the process in the digester, and it is sent to the output collection systems, which could be barrels, totes, tankers, whatever vessel the material is going to be delivered in for final use. Now, the material itself remains viable. It's nutrient rich. The bacteria cornerstone of the function is that it enables non-legume plants to act like legumes, and the bacteria fixes nitrogen. And Leighton will go into more of that when we discuss reports later, but that's the cornerstone of how it works. Now, what happens in the process as we have built out and developed the system over the years is we've created an ideal environment for the bacteria to not only survive, but to thrive. And it maintains like a homeostasis. And what happens is, as that material is processing and being output, the liquid that is super bacteria rich, nutrient rich, is continuously cycling throughout the system through the front to back process. And it's maintaining that bacterial bed and maintaining the process in its ideal state. And that is basically, in a nutshell, that's how the process works.
All right, so we'll go a little bit deeper, and I think this is important. What Mo did was combine a series of different type of grinding equipment. So he's got a primary grinder, and then a secondary grinder, then a macerator, and on and on. And I think by this process, he's creating a tremendous amount of surface area for these specific bacterial colonies to establish themselves, and therefore allows it to continue to grow as he takes stuff off of it, which is, again, an amazing discovery. And I think that it's really important to shout out the fact that this thing balances itself. So if bacteria gets too far out of control, the protozoa kick in and they start to consume the bacteria. I truly believe there are other secondary, tertiary metabolic processes that are also starting to help governing that balance. But we saw this with the first round of experiments that we did, where when bacteria was out of control, we introduced juice, bacteria dropped. When bacteria was low and we introduced juice, bacteria rose. So again, there's so much more to this than what we're going to be able to get into today. It's probably going to take us another couple of 3 months to really suss out further information as to what's going on. So that being said, another thing that was really interesting was when we really started to get into the weeds with this, Mo texted me a nitrogen cycling diagram, which I really meant to send to Ken, and I'll try to pull it up in a minute here. That was fascinating because it was outside of the traditional aerobic nitrogen cycle. It was something that is often looked into in aquaculture. And so when he sent that to me, I sent that off to Keith. Wilda, who is not only a dear friend, but a very, very smart man who's been in the aquaculture industry since he was a very young age, and he instantly recognized it. And so I went back to Mo, and I'm like, Mo, how did you come up with this? So
Yeah.
come on, fill us in. How did you come up with that?
Yeah, so initially when we started doing this, I was working with, it's funny that you mentioned for the aqua systems, because that was how I started the experimentation. Was the initial thought was to reduce nitrate contamination from agricultural runoff. As an aside on that, the reason I specifically started with that, my mother was from Central California, an agricultural community, and she died of cancer at a very young age in the 1980s at 47 years old. And not only her, but a lot of people in the community that she was from died at young ages of these rare and unusual cancers back then. So there was this kind of cluster of this going on. And I became interested in this through that, where I was like, okay, this is a specific thing that I want to do just with water. To clean that the high levels of nitrate, because as 35 milligrams per liter of nitrate is cancer causing. So that was the initial motivation, and therefore using these nitrogen fixing bacteria, that's how I started the process to develop that.
So that's new information to me, but that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Very much so. So all right, so let's talk a little bit more about some of the things that we believe are happening. Now, I was praying I was going to get a backup data for one specific report, which I don't feel comfortable sharing just yet, because I got to get backup data on it. But it appears that during the process, the biology is helping to precipitate out the nutrient into a stable organic form. And by stable organic, I mean it's non-mobile. It's not going to wash throughout the soil system. It's there, it's stable. It's not going to oxidize. It's not going to volatile or it's not going to turn into a gas or anything else. The only thing that can unleash it is the actual bacteria that would normally be associated with that type of organic nitrogen. And that's where he was talking about that this actually fixes nitrogen. So maybe you can speak a little bit on that for a minute, Mo?
Yeah. So the like I said, the bacteria causes non-legume plants to act like legumes for a period of time. So as your bean plants have like nodules on their root systems that allow them to fix nitrogen, and through some other biology that accomplishes that. This bacteria, when it gets absorbed into the root systems, accomplishes the same thing. And when you have your nematodes, your protozoa, the organisms that take in the bacteria, also help this process happen. But that's the cornerstone right there of how this whole process works, is what is that function of the bacteria. Now, the nutrients themselves are broken down in your more complex compounds are broken down into their elemental states. So you have these ions floating around throughout the liquid as well. And that material is then more readily absorbable and usable by the plants. So as one of the examples I use frequently is like calcium carbonate is separated. You have your calcium ion then floating around in the liquid, which is more readily available than if it's in the calcium carbonate form. Another example I give people as I tell them about this, like in wastewater treatment, you have aluminum sulfate is a common compound that's used in wastewater treatment, but that material has to be broken down. So one of the things that we see in our process is that compounds like that, like in the wastewater treatment, if you use just the aluminum ion as opposed to the aluminum sulfate, use 1/3 of the amount of compound you would normally have to use. If you use the same kind of thing with our bacteria, because as these compounds are broken down into their elemental states, you are now able to more effectively utilize everything that's there.
I think another really interesting point was the level of flagellates that you're achieving. Now, you're not inoculating these flagellates. They're coming in as passengers on the food waste. And they're doing a tremendous amount of nutrient cycling, as well as keeping everything in balance. So again, this process has just been, so fun to explore because it's not only an amazing use for food waste, it has just incredible potential for what I want to say turning fields. So in a traditional ag field, you have no biology. You have bacteria, but you don't have any advanced biology. Where if you introduce this product out of the gate in a low oxygen environment like a traditional ag compacted soil, you're going to have a tremendous response. So you've pretty much jump started ecology with the creation of this product. And just for the audience to understand, traditional or food waste at this point in time is just being tossed into landfills and turning into gas. It's gas.
Yeah, we could certainly speak a little bit to that. That right now, that's actually one of our biggest problems, especially here in Southern California, like in LA County. I don't remember how many thousand tons of food waste it goes to landfill, and they have legislation in to require diversion, and that's always it's being pushed back. But we can take all that food waste and divert it from the landfill, which is hugely important because as you were just saying, that material going into the landfill, well, that is just producing toxic gases, and it's dangerous. It can get up over 1,000 degrees down in the landfill, I believe. It's insane, and it doesn't need to be going there. We can divert it through our machine, and we can process all of that. And there's a couple of things here that I'll mention on that. One, we can turn it into this super bioactivated fertilizer product, which is great. But there are also some regulations. There's certain organics that you can't send out to be fertilizer. So, okay, fine. You can, if you aren't going to do that with those portions of the waste, you can just process that stuff and send it down the drain. And it's perfectly safe for the sewage systems. It will actually improve the sewage systems all the way to the final processing there, because that bacteria is just going to continue doing what it does as it's running through that system. So it's a win-win situation. There's just no downside.
And again, I think that, moving forward as a population that has an understanding of some of the problems that we have at this point in time, that it's critical that people hear about this and understand that there are other alternatives. Speak a little bit on the next generation benchtop, because I think that one is going to really affect on a greater scale than some of these bigger machines. I mean, the problem with the bigger machines, as you well know, we've discussed it, is the existing powers that be don't give a shit. They're collecting their 150 a ton. They're dumping it in the landfill. Why would they want to invest money in this machine and produce an unproven fertilizer? So, again, it's like the money is lazy. It doesn't want to learn anything new. It just wants to keep making its money. And so can you talk a little bit about the next generation bench tops and maybe some of the smaller units?
Yeah. So one of the things that we're doing on an ongoing basis is testing the efficacy of a variety of different processes and materials that we can break down. So like for example, the glyphosate, the main ingredient in Roundup, is something that we determined we did a study with the Polytechnic Institute down in Mexico City. We completely neutralized that, and that was using the small system to do that testing. And we can break it down in small, medium, and high concentrations. Completely neutralized it. So that was a great thing. And we are, because of the structure of a variety of these poisons, pesticides, toxins, whichever term we want to use, we are going to be determining that we can break down even more. And that's where the benchtop units are just going to be invaluable for that, because it's very easy to set up and we can run that material. So that's what we're going to be doing moving forward. We're in the process right now of building some smaller systems to do that. It's going to be that's going to be a game changer, because once we can show that all of those different compounds that we can break down, we're already started, and we are going to be showing more. It's going to be amazing.
Well, on that note, on discussing the breakdown of glyphosate back to a stable and unharmful chemical, let's talk about cannabis. So And in the background, I sent you 2 reports, one showing the product going into the muncher, and the other test data report shows what came out of the muncher. Is there any way you can pull that up and throw it up on the screen? So while we give...
Okay, which one would it be, Leighton?
It was the one that I sent you late morning. So it's one of the first ones, and it was from CCLT, I believe.
Okay, the first one I've got is the Bud report, and then a juice report. Is it the juice report you're looking for?
No, it was sent. It was a forward. I forwarded it you something from another company.
The Ag Health one?
Yes, I think the Ag Health one.
Okay, just give me half a second here to share my screen. Would it be that one?
No, sorry, not that one. It was. I didn't realize I sent you that one.
You sent me a lot of stuff.
I know I did, dude. I know I did.
That one. This one, the image that I can't open, and then there was the videos.
No. Let me go back. I think I sent you everything through Yahoo. Can biojuice, bio only video report. Here's the closeout report. No, I'm sorry. I should have had my act together this morning. Forgive me.
You know, I'm used to that. You know, the 9th hour, as they call it. I start getting all these videos and documentation. So I got test lab complete. Your orders.
Yes, that's the one.
Okay.
And you have to scroll all the way down through that to the bottom, and there'll be 2 attachments.
Okay, let me start this again.
So anyway, there was this company that began to work with Ron and Gary and Mo. It's a cannabis, not recovery, destruction company. So out here in California, you cannot just dump your cannabis. That's whether it's failed a test or whether it's past its shelf life. It has to be properly handled and destroyed. So this company came to this crew to talk about what the effects are that could be provided. Yep, scroll all the way down. Just zip all the way down. There you go.
That's as far as it went.
No, that's it. Those should have been 2 attachments right there.
Yeah. So you.
All right. Can you open them?
That's the Bud one that I had.
Yep. All right. So let's
go through that one. Okay.
Yep. First, we'll go for Bud and see if you can blow it up a little.
Yeah.
All right. And then I want to see the THC value, total cannabinoids, 19.464 of that, 18.184% was THC. So this is a decent cannabis. We don't care about all the specifics, but bottom line is it shows that what went into the machine had a tremendous amount of the psychoactive compound known as THC, THC 8 or 9, and of course the THCA. And now let's scroll down to post process, or that would be the next attachment over. So this verifies we had high THC in the product that Mo fed into the machine. Mm-hmm. And then the next one will show exactly what came out of it. Wow. Is that the next attachment, or are you still on the first attachment?
Just go back.
No, that's the one with the liquid. So that was the next attachment.
Okay, there it is. Yep, that's it. And look at that top line.
Wow.
0.028. And for all of you that don't know, the farm bill was 0.03 for considered allowable THC levels in hemp production.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So right now, cannabis is being hauled off the shelves and out of these labs that were rejected And it's basically these guys are told to mix it with dirt, which is just absolutely insane. So when I was there meeting with them to explain a little bit more about who I was and why I was involved with these guys, I grabbed some of the sample, the flour as well as the pre-rolls, and then I grabbed some juice coming out of the back end and ran it to this lab group to test it. At that point, I then reached out to 3 different cannabis growers that I know of and trust to actually pull data. Over the years, I've worked with a lot of cannabis growers who promised to send me post-testing data so that we could actually kind of suss out, first of all, whether living soils actually increased or to what degree increased the compounds that we're looking for. And I've yet to get one of those completed, but this time I called 3 different people, sent them out samples. Most recently, I sent off both a solid and a liquid to Luna Whitcomb, and she's going to be doing some further data research on it. But so far, the feedback I have from Billy, and he's going to come on here in a minute. We're only half an hour in, which is great. And then also, anecdotally, the gentleman that's growing it for me on a side-by-side here in LA said that when he up-potted, the amount of white roots was insane versus without. So again, we're getting into stuff that we can't truly explain yet. I had a wonderful conversation with Elaine on Sunday. She's going to be coming on next week to talk about this and some other things. And one of the interesting things was that she did give me the name a couple labs down in Texas that we can do some of this more intricate amino acid, peptides, and some of the deeper level stuff, because clearly there is some kind of hormonal or impact on a secondary, tertiary metabolite that we just don't have any data on. We know for sure, or again, I believe that we have created an organic, stable form of fertilizer. We know that we have a biological inoculant because we've applied it repeatedly in a number of tests over the last 6 months, introducing it to my biology, which would be fish brew, worm castings, and my own compost, and had no adverse effects, or in some kinds really interesting effects. And we'll get into a little bit of that in the second hour. But backing it up, we're starting to see some of the, I want to call unexpected benefits of this process that Mo has created. And I believe you've seen some anecdotal stuff. Why don't you, Mo, talk a little bit about the avocados that you.
Oh, yeah. So we, with our team down in Mexico, this is another thing that we have discovered, is that avocados, for example, take from 3 to 5 years to begin bearing fruit. We saw a freshly planted avocado from seedling to tree bearing fruit within a year and a half. So that was one of the things that we most recently did early on when I was doing my initial testing. And again, this is just my anecdotal testing at home and in my yard, where I was refining, just basically starting and refining the process a little bit. Grew like artichoke plants, where you take the untreated plant and it produces 4 artichokes. I put a treated plant, produces 7. And they grow faster and they require less water. So there's a number of things happening there that are very nice. We grew tomatoes in pure sand, and tomatoes are kind of difficult to grow in the first place, and we fully grew them just in pure sand with applying the Muncher juice. So there's just, I can give example after example of different things that we've grown with it now, and now that we're doing the third-party testing with these other entities now, we're starting to see these results bear it out again.
Well, I want to go back to just getting a better understanding of what's going on here. Just so your feedstock, in example for the avocado, is going to be different than the one you used in your backyard.
No, just general organic waste, food waste, and it does make a difference. Like if you were just processing potatoes, for example, you're not going to have as high quality of an end product. It's the ideal situation is to have a good mix of your organic material. Having said that, even if you are just processing a singular type of waste, that whether it's all
Cannabis.
lettuce, or if it's something or the cannabis, you're still going to have a quality product because of the bacterial activation. But the more diverse waste mixture that you have in there, the better the nutrient content overall is going to be.
And I think the work that we're trying to figure out by these new labs that Elaine has suggested is to determine the microbial content or the organic molecule content.
The organic molecule content.
Okay.
Well, it actually be more in the enzyme category.
Yep.
Enzyme category.
So right. So we have,
does the diversity of the feedstock affect the diversity of the end product of the Muncher juice?
Yes, it does, to the degree that like I was saying, you will have a higher quality product if you have a more diverse mixture of waste.
Yeah, and that's related to an increased diversity of the proprietary microbes.
Well, the microbes themselves are going to be the same. The mixture is the mixture, but if you have the better waste you have, the more diversity of nutrients that you're going to have coming in to be processed. So that's how it'll help. The bacteria, just to go into a little bit of detail on that, like I start with a concentration of 4 billion CFUs per gram, and then we grow the bed from there, and it typically takes 2 to 3 days for the large systems to fully boot up. A benchtop unit takes a couple hours. But again, we're using a much smaller deal on that. But that's again the combination of all the aeration, agitation, heating, the whole environment that we create in there, and of course by grinding everything down and macerating it to the small particle size. Everything just works together to do this. But that the more diverse the waste, the better quality product you're going to have at the end, and it can be tailored. To you could put different materials in, like say you might want a different mix to grow strawberries as you would to grow corn.
Mm-hmm. And thanks, Al, for asking that question, because that's where I was kind of going with the fact that after we ran the cannabis, I wanted to send it out to cannabis growers under the assumption that that would have been a better nutrient mix for cannabis cultivation. So that, we're just beginning that phase of, okay, originally we were just saying, all right, whatever feedstocks we got. But now as we move forward, we're going to start tailoring the feedstocks toward the plant that we're going to apply it to.
Yeah. And
again, we're so in the beginning phases of this understanding and the possibilities and potential of this. It's not funny. And, Mo brought up another point that I think is, something that we need to, hit on, is that, diversity is important. And one of the interesting developments that came out of the gate in the first test was I asked Mo to throw a bunch of spent mushroom substrate in to just see if this was going to destroy the spores. It did not. And the spores were completely viable and pushed inky caps all over the place. I showed Ron and Mo the last time they were up, when they were packing up, a couple areas where they were just covered in these inky caps. And that was where I had spilled the Muncher juice. So not only did it encourage the growth of the mushrooms, it encouraged, or it allowed the spores to come through active and healthy. So again, it's just really,
and that makes sense, because this is not composting, right?
Right.
We are just digesting. So and if we're tight for time, because I just wanted to make sure the audience fully understands that the difference between aerobic and anaerobic digestion and in-vessel composting, but maybe that's for another day. I'll turn it back to you, Leighton.
Thank you for bringing that up, Ab. I mean, I'm like overwhelmed at this point, because I could go in so many different directions. But one of the early conversations that Mo and I had, I think it was at our first supper, that time we were at Wood's barbecue, was that, I started talking to Mo about parameters. Like, All right. So what I've found is the sweet spot to grow protozoa between 85 degrees and about 100, 105 degrees. That tends to be the sweet spot if I'm really looking to produce protozoa. If I'm looking to produce fungi, it's going to be down lower. It's going to be 75 to 95, somewhere in that range. So the first thing I did was, all right, Mo, you're heating this. What are you heating to? So Mo, talk a little bit more about the parameters of the machine.
Absolutely. So we maintain a certain liquid solid ratio to keep it kind of a soupy mix, of course. And the heat, I found that the optimal range is right around in that 100-degree plus area Fahrenheit that you have for your biology as well. But the system runs really well within about an 80 degrees to about 125. When you go outside of those parameters, the process doesn't stop, but it slows down. And of course, the aeration is an additional key, because without we have a very, very particular aeration system that is also very critical for maintaining the bacteria in its form.
Because he has such a high BOD, biological oxygen demand, that temperature and introduction of high levels of parts per million of oxygen is critical in that circumstance. And so some of the other intricate pieces of this is that he balances pH. So why don't you talk a little bit about pH, because again, these are really important parameters to understand.
Yeah, absolutely. So we maintain a stable, a neutral pH between 6 and 7 is where we like to operate. Again, if you go, I've taken it up as high as 14, and I've taken it down super low. And when you go outside, of the neutral range, again, the process just slows down and doesn't work as well. And so we buffer the system. Because we're aerobically respiring, we very rarely have to actually lower the pH, because the respiration tends to be acidic and drops the pH. So we have to we have to raise the pH periodically. So we have a dosing system that buffers the pH and maintains it in the neutral range. And again, it's just using a calcium compound, very simple, to keep it again in a natural process without introducing anything harsh or toxic. So that's how we accommodate pH. And again, pH can be adjusted up or down, again, as may be needed for whatever crops you're growing, because there are certain crops that like it a little higher, some that like it a little lower. So that's another thing that can be accomplished here in the machine. You can just tell it, I want this to come out at 5, I want it to come out at 7, and we can just buffer it accordingly.
I wonder if humic acid would be just another great addition as your buffer, bringing in humic acid into the equation.
Yeah.
So one of the things that he does have, and again, thank you for bringing that up, because I probably would have forgotten, is he always starts with organic matter. So some type of compost or worm castings, whatever he can get his hands on to jumpstart that. So he is getting that initial bump of humic acid from that organic matter, because he's grinding it up into these tiny, tiny little molecules. He's releasing all the humic and fulvic acids that were built up in that organic matter. So again, the process, I've tried to poke holes in this from every side I could possibly think, and I can't. It's a gold bar, right? It's freaking amazing, results. And I think it's also important to understand that I have yet to find an example, and Av, maybe you can help me with this, of what I want to call nutrient exchange or digestion that is non-anaerobic. Like all animals, humans, we all have a digestive system that works or operates under anaerobic conditions. And I don't know of any other way to extract nutrient out of anything, meat, cheese, organic, whatever, without the influence of not having oxygen complicate or slow down the release of nutrients. So, Ab, can you come up with any situations?
I mean, our small intestines, is that not still aerobic, and it's our large intestines that are more anaerobic? Because do not
from what I understand, it goes stomach acid anaerobic, upper intestine, small intestine anaerobic. Supposedly when it turns that corner and comes into the large intestine,
That's where
the
it's
parts per million start to go up a little, but it's not 8 parts per million. It's not aerobic. It's still considered, facultative at the best anaerobic.
Right.
So
I have to jump in here because I just had a thought. Is the first 4 feet of soil that oxygen gets into, it's naturally doing that. So isn't that just the way that Mother Nature is actually doing it?
yeah, right. So again, this shouldn't be possible.
Yeah.
You should not be able to extract nutrient at that level that quickly under these conditions with that much oxygenization. Yes, he's using more along the lines of facultative biology, but it's still the end result of the Muncher juice that comes out. Does it have a ping to it? Does it have an odor to it? Yeah. But is it offensive? No. If the system crashes and shuts down or loses power, then yes, it does begin to smell.
It can go anaerobic and become nasty.
Yeah.
I mean, but that's mainly methane, and it's
Right.
It's generating electricity, right? I mean, you're generating methane production.
Yeah, technically, because of the way the bacterial mixture that we use, it technically can be run as an anaerobic digester. Although we don't really want to go that direction with what we're doing, because then you get there are anaerobic digesters are all over the place. Right. I mean, that's a system that is already tried and proven, and we're doing something else. But our bacteria does function anaerobically as well.
Mm. So, have there been tests just applying the microbes to a crop and Muncher juice to a crop and seeing that there is in fact a synergistic response?
Yeah, early tests that I had done too, and Leighton has been doing more of this. If you take just the bacterial mixture, like for example, you have to have something for the bacteria to feed on. If you just take the bacteria and water it down and throw it on something, it's not going to do much of anything. Mm-hmm. But when we initially, like I said, I was breaking down nitrate. The particular compound I used was sodium nitrate, and I would load up like several thousand milligrams per liter into water tanks, and then I would run the process. So now you've just got the bacteria eating nitrate, and I would take that liquid and apply it to plants, and it had phenomenal growth. But I found when I processed the solid waste, which is when our team came together those years ago, we had switched over to processing solid and not just doing the water treatment. The solid waste processing, it just seems to work better. And Leighton may speak a little more to that.
Yeah, you know what we're going to do? Let's go ahead and pull Billy up and finish with the cannabis, and then we'll bounce into arugula. Which is exactly what your question pertains to. Yeah. So let me introduce Billy. He's an old, he should pop in here in a second. There he is. Thank you,
Hey, everybody. How are you guys?
So Billy is a friend of mine. We've met virtually as well as in person a couple of times, and he was kind enough to actually take this test on. And again, I used a cannabis digested Muncher, Muncher juice plus pulp, as we lovingly call it, for lack of better word. So it had the still as well as the juice. Billy, why don't you give us a quick tour and introduce yourself, and let's see what you got.
Hey, guys. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for what you do. I mean, Ken continuing this, obviously Leighton at the helm, and, all the new people that I've never met yet. Hello, and thank you for what you do.
Yes, hello. It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. So I want to point this out that we're going to get to the cannabis in a minute, but without Leighton knowing, I also treated my starters. And you brought up beans earlier, okay? Mm-hmm. So these two beans and these two beans were started at the same time. This is a general hydroponics recommended feed. I might have some flowers going. This is your Muncher juice. Wow. Flowers going, growing out of solo cups. All I do is give them that. There's absolutely no soil in those solo cups. My starters over here, the peas, have freaked out to a point to where it's so cold in my area, I can't get them outside fast enough. So all of this has been treated essentially with a low dose.
Mm-hmm.
Billy,
Now,
can you turn your phone a quarter turn, please, so we get the widescreen, brother?
sure. There you go. So this also is two plants that I've treated recently with Muncher juice, and you can see not so much the size difference, but when I talk about hormones in my teachings and my grows, I always talk about having 3 and 5 leaves, and that tells me, I mean, we're going, but then you get to a 6, and hopefully you're producing 7s, and the Muncher seems to bring me 7s early on several different cultivars. That's undergrowth with 7s, okay? And these are from seed. These particular plants that Leighton has consumed this material, and it's a real special, hard to grow cultivar that I chose to regen from a flowered plant. So we brought that back, just like I'm doing with this little guy. This is from just one little bud, okay? So this is what cannabis growers count on, is to be able to regenerate one strain, that special strain, from a flower that was 5 weeks old, one small little flower. Same thing happened with these 3 plants, okay? Their size difference doesn't matter because the clones were taken a week apart. So this plant here is bottle fed. This plant here, absolutely nothing but just bioag and some humic acid. And this is your Muncher. It's smaller, but it was the last clone taken. But also, if you look at the no Muncher, just relying on the soil, here's my 5s, okay? And if you look at my Muncher, here's my 7s. Smaller plant. Blowing out 7s early on, blowing out 7s in the undergrowth, which you don't see. There's your 5s, okay? But even on these lower ones, you shouldn't have 7s down there. That's something that I see in the consumption of the soil, because I buy bagged soil. I'm not able to make my own soil yet, but I buy all cocoa product. So the microbial life and the biology that I input is usually a heavy fungi early on, which I did not do here, because by request of Leighton, don't introduce anything except these particular products. So I did. So we got nothing here, Muncher juice here, and then a bottle fed. So we're going to go over some more stress points here, okay? So this bottle fed, I always have to give it CalMag because I don't want this purple. I don't want these purple stripes. I don't want that purple on that stem. And if you look at the nothing plant, it has less than the bottle, okay? And that's a recommended feed by General Hydroponics. And if you look at your plant, I got white. There's barely any purple, barely any striping. So the hormone levels that are in your plant, I'm able to, number one, to take clones earlier, which stops me from buying cloning materials. Rely on the plant flowering earlier and smaller. I can put it into flower earlier because I know the hormones are in balance. And the consumption of the soil that I buy allows, I'm not feeding them anything. We're on the first week. So we're going to see throughout this grow what each plant needs by necessity, by what I dictate. And usually I can get to about week 3 on soil alone. But we're going to see if your Muncher allows faster consumption of the soil or slower consumption of the soil. And usually what I run, though, is a high fungi microbial solution injection in veg. And then I rely on a high bacteria in the last 3 weeks of flower. And that's to get, and a lot of growers will do this, but then they don't know it. They're putting a teaspoon of molasses in their water per gallon. So just that bacteria alone allows the plant, the soil, and all the microbial life to eat what is left in my 10-gallon pot. The first month, these were just up potted with some worm castings, so they're all going to unify here real quick, and that life and that change is certainly going to change things. But once I get to flower, you're going to see a huge difference between all of them, and they're going to tell me what they need. So that's where I'm interested to see what the Muncher juice is going to do as far as the biology itself. Will it be relying on the worm castings, or will it be relying on the Muncher juice? So when I finally got my microscope settings right, and I was able to look at what Ken's going to pull up, this plant has almost no life in it. And it should have some, but it has almost none. And there's 2, possibly 3 lenses of video that I took. And your Muncher juice soil is just off the charts with life, to where I've never been able to follow that many nematodes and follow that life, even with my white lens, the 3rd stage of magnification. And like Leighton says, I only rely on those first 2 lenses. Don't worry about that 3rd one. Well, the 3rd one was showing me so much life that I've never seen before. I had to record the video. So after I'm done, I'm sure you guys will review that. But again, to review this, as far as stressors that I see on cannabis indoors with these LED lights, I have also not given your plant any CalMag. I have tried to kill your plant by feeding it 600 ppm constantly, and it won't die. So here's the juice. I got the stinky version. It's running at 6.6 pH. So I balance everything out after I add things to drop life down to 6.2. Sometimes it depends on my mood, because the soil recommendation is 6.2, but I like 6. I do a lot of inputs, a lot of Korean natural farming, a lot of things that I played with. I believe in bioag. I believe in SD microbes. I've looked at everything with my scope, and now that I really know how to use my microscope, holy shit.
Watch out, world. So what about rooting, Billy? Did you see anything when you up-potted that was interesting?
When I up-pot, usually the soil falls off clean on a cocoa because it's so brittle. But no, there was more root mass on your plant. Even though it was smaller, the 3-gallon up-pot held together. Cocoa is difficult to deal with. I know a lot of people just go with peat, but I don't believe in that. So, cocoa is a challenge. You can't overwater it, or you're going to have a problem. I've learned that the living soil grassroots pots are only for when I don't want moisture in my grow. I need to rely on the moisture from a true felt pot to not use my humidifier. Anything I cannot use as far as costing me money, electricity, nutrition. I mean, that's going to last the whole grow, and I'm going to feed everything else with it, you guys. So thank you so much, Leighton, for this.
Yeah, absolutely. And when do you go into flower, Billy?
Uh-oh.
This is the first week of.
You there? No. You broke up.
Yeah, somebody tried to call me. So this is the first week of flower for all of it. So.
And how long does this plant run?
I've ran it 3 times, and it comes in at 7 weeks every time. Always comes in early. This is that purple plant that has those purple trichomes, and this has been sent to Organic Alexa at Haifa in Michigan. It's been sent to its originating farm, Huckleberry Hills Farms in California, as well as Healing Herbs Farms in California. So those 2 states are certainly going to see this cannabis come to fruition, because it's a high terpene ratio to THC. So it was a 14-to-4 ratio, and that is a pleasurable smoke. Obviously, Leighton, you've smoked it, so you know it. And some people don't like the high effect of THC. They want the medical benefit of the terpenes that are in cannabis. And although everybody likes to enjoy some THC, I feel that the terpenes and the cannabinoids and the cannabinols that are left over in your product that are, even though you may not have THC there, do a terpene test. Send that to a cannabis lab and have them do a terpene pull on your byproduct.
I actually did. I actually did. There was very, yeah, I actually did, and there was very little terpene there. So unfortunately, yeah, and I think that I give that to aeration. I mean, he's bubbling the crap out of the shit. So you're gonna vulcanize it.
How do you justify the hormones from a harvested, dried, cured, processed material?
We got to get into the weeds on that one, my friend. That's where this next round of testing, which is it's going to be budget busting, but that's the next step, is to find out, what are those secondary and tertiary metabolites that are occurring.
Mm-hmm.
But all this is super encouraging, and again, verifying or validating, some of the other stuff that I've witnessed in the arugula test, that my other grower in LA witnessed, Mo's witnessed. So, there's something there. We just got to qualify or quantify it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, just so everybody knows, I wasn't told anything until last week what this was. I was told I'm an artist and to just deal with it. So I did. and I dealt with it, and a 10-to-1 ratio brings you a 600 ppm on a 250 well water. I don't think anybody can ask for better than that, especially under these monster LED lights with no CalMag. Come on. What's in it? Yeah,
Well,
there's
Billy,
that purple. Yeah.
Billy, you've heard of a double blind, right? Well, that's what you are. Double blind, or mushrooms. We keep you in the dark and feed you shit until you need to know.
Well, again, thanks a lot, you guys. I'll sign off so you guys continue the verbiage that I highly don't understand sometimes, but obviously you can see the results of me focusing when I can. And thank you so much for inventing the Muncher machine.
Thank you for using it and showing us.
you. That's great.
And Mo,
thank you very much, Billy. Yes.
Mo, I lost my mother at 47 in the Memon Hospital in 92. So
Oh, I'm sorry to hear
sorry
that, man.
for your loss. Yeah.
Thank you. And for you
Okay,
as well.
sir. Thank you, guys. We'll talk soon.
All right, thanks,
Take care,
Billy.
Billy. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, Ken, why don't you pull up some of the slides that Billy just sent you a couple minutes ago? And let's take a look at the biological life. And again, this is a biological inoculant, very similar to fish brew.
Yeah, as he's pulling those up, I'll throw one thing out there, that because we are processing aerobically, as he's talking about the nematodes going off the charts and that, because we encourage the aerobic process itself, encourages the growth of your beneficial nematodes, and also discourages the destructive, like your root nematodes. So that's another component there, just in consideration.
And Mo, so Billy referred to, he got the stinky stuff, right? So
yeah. Well, when he's saying stinky stuff, it still had a stronger cannabis odor.
Oh, it still has the cannabis odor. So Gary was referring to his little batch that he has right now, that it used to have the stinky the cannabis odor, and now it's gone to kind of like an earthy smell.
Yeah, because it's been sitting, and the bacteria has just continued to devour it.
Right.
So one of the other tests that I did was I tested Muncher juice anaerobic, Muncher juice fresh, Muncher juice aerobically stabilized, to see what the difference is. And if we have enough time, I will send Ken a chart or the test results showing that. Again, there's so much more I need to suss out. I need to repeat these experiments just to validate, verify that what's happening is what I'm experiencing. So we're still in the preliminary stages of releasing some of this information, but the results are just crazy. Ken, are you back there, or did you have to take a break or something?
Oh no, I'm back here. I'm just trying to figure out. Billy sent me all these things, and I'm just trying to make sure that I get them right. So that's one of them.
No, there should be another one.
Oh, there's lots. Okay, let's bring up this one.
No.
Okay.
It should be the most recent ones, not the earlier ones.
Well, I'm looking at my timestamp. So let's see, AM, PM. So let's check out this one.
There you go.
Okay, now I got the right set.
Yeah, I don't know how long this is. Not long. But basically it's showing, and he's going to snap up the lenses too, the magnification, which will give us a better view of what the heck's going on. Yeah, he's still got to play with this microscope. Billy, we're gonna do a session this weekend, so I really get you dialed in.
Hey, Leighton, do you have any phase contrast on your microscope?
No, I do not. I have just a very, very basic device. What is it called? It's not the stereoscope. There's a nice flagellate right there bouncing around.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like another one up at about 11 o'clock. But yeah, I mean, I think the important thing is that, as he stated, in the soil with the hydroponics or the nutrient solution, as well as the one that's not being fed, he's not seeing any of this. And I think that just verifies the fact that this is a biological inoculant.
Interesting.
Now that whole screen's moving.
You're getting flagellates and some Brownian movement.
Yep, absolutely. All right, Gary. Love it. I try to explain to people what Brownian motion is. They're like, what? The vibration of the earth? What? So, yeah, I think we could probably bounce on. Yeah, those slides are not as good. He was, he's struggling to get the focus really dialed in. And that's probably just some plant matter. But Ab, did you want to ask anything before we bounce on?
Yeah. So I assume you'll be chatting with Billy and be looking at those trichomes. Are you expecting that this is going to, perhaps finish in 6 weeks as opposed to 7 weeks?
It's got a shot, Av. I mean, basically throwing 7s that far low in the canopy indicates that this plant is mature and ready to go. Mm-hmm. So she very well may finish early, which will be another great representation of the power of this material. Yeah. And again, moving forward, we're going to start looking at, feedstocks for what we're actually producing and where it would be best utilized. And so a lot of work left to do. Ken, you want to start pulling up some of that arugula stuff? Why don't you start with the videos I sent you? Because I think, we talked about root development as a really good indicator of overall plant health and plant response. So I did. All right. Can you get the volume, or is there no volume with it?
You guys aren't getting the volume. Hold on. I'll retry that. Hold on.
And maybe, so Leighton, is that your hand in there?
Yes.
Because he was mentioning how the cocoa coir was just holding on to, or the one with the Muncher juice was just holding on to all the cocoa coir. And I just wonder if that just means that there's a lot more root hairs because of, the stuff that
well, I don't know if they can hear it or not.
Jim White has done, right? In terms of looking at the rhizophagy cycle and the fact that through that you get a lot more root hair.
Yes. So Av, you're going to see in these videos, as I discuss and show you as I'm trying to pull these balls apart, how well the soil held together. Unfortunately, I didn't video control because I was so excited to break open the pots. But I mean, obviously, you're going to see just the difference between juice only, bio only, and bio and juice combined. And it's pretty obvious that this is throwing a tremendous amount of more roots because it's just they're caked and they're long and it's held the soil together amazing. And this was soil that Gary took and put in his oven for, what was it, 3 hours at 200?
Yeah. It was 3 hours at 200 degrees.
He cooked the shit out of it. So, it was dry, it was cakey, it was hard to get water into it. I
really think you need to get this stuff to Jim White because I think he's going to have a lot of fun with it as well.
That's a great suggestion.
And I'll make a comment on the what you're observing on that root growth. I have seen that time and again whenever I've grown anything using the Muncher juice.
2.4 ounces, and it was observed at the rooting.
You got sound now?
Yep.
Okay.
I mean, some of these roots are just crazy long. The soil is just held together by the roots.
Mm-hmm.
So that first one was, I believe, juice.
Even greater rooting in bio and juice combined. This is just all roots, great structure, a lot of bugs.
Look at that ecosystem in a bottle.
Yep.
Not the ecology.
And just, I think I show the weights on this one. Here we go.
Juice combined with biology, 2.7 ounces, and
that was wet weight.
all stay together.
Look at that.
Just
Is that not incredible, Av? That was crappy soil.
Wow. Did you do a taste test?
Did I do a what test?
A taste test, a little sensory evaluation. Was it any spicier or?
No, I actually didn't. I sent off all of the plant material for plant nutrition, which we can bring up next.
Okay.
Again, I didn't get all the data because it was a cold. Or let me shut up.
One as the combination, but again, just great rooting structure and pretty darn good soil structure.
So, to answer the question,
2.1.
yeah, I should really talk about the wet weights. So 2.1 biology only, 2.4 juice only, 2.7 combined, and it was like 1.5 in control. So unfortunately, the weather out here was just horrible for this experiment. We had cold weather, tremendous amount of rain. Those plants were almost drowned about 4 or 5 times.
Yeah.
No sunlight. And I had to let them go to seed just to get enough biomass to send out for the test. So I went past the nutritional value of the material. So we get some really kind of interesting information. And Gary, maybe you can speak a little bit about this in fiber versus protein versus digestibility. And all of those factors we did get results on. But again, it was unfortunately already seeding or past flower into seed. So we lost the most important part of it. And again, that was a preliminary experiment. We're definitely going to repeat that one. We are a lot of them, just to, again, to validate, verify, and qualify and quantify that these results are in fact going to happen over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if anybody wanted to add anything. Otherwise, why don't you pull up those reports from the A&L lab, Ken, and we'll breeze through those real quick.
Yeah, those are interesting.
I know we buried him. He's struggling to find it out. No, that's Andy. It would have been that one that I said no that you pulled up earlier.
And,
So-
and Mo, as Ken's digging that up, or Gary, in terms of if you had an incredibly fibrous feedstock, is it just take a lot longer to get
That's Ken.
the juice that you want?
It does take a little longer to break that down, yes. So what we typically like to do when you have your more fibrous material is feed in a smaller amount of it, because then it does digest well. But sometimes we have to recycle it through depending what we're running, wood chips, various things like that, for example, as well. Your softer waste is much easier to process, and again, this also just comes back to that diverse mixture that I was talking about before. If you went to just process your highly fibrous material, we would have to change the process. We'd have to run it longer. If you mix it, then it tends to go well.
Yeah, but like you know, if you follow Elaine's discussions around ecological succession, and you've got a plant that has a 1-to-1 fungal to bacterial ratio, are you also trying to put your feedstock in at a particular ratio to get that type of Muncher juice? Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, and I haven't run it specifically that way.
Yep.
So that would be something we'd have to run to see which, when we get our benchtop unit, will be very convenient to do.
Yeah, again, we've got a lot of work left to do in both formulation and understanding more about some of these unseen forces that are occurring.
Yeah.
Not just the inoculant, the bioinoculant, and not just the actual precipitation of raw organic nutrients out of it in their raw form, but also, like Mo mentioned, is these ions.
Mm-hmm.
Ions are plant available, so who knew? It's beyond an exudate. All right, Gary. I'm sorry, Ken. Can you pull that one up you just had? And that one should have four total. Yeah, there you go. 4 total tests. So this is the control. And Gary, feel free to talk about moisture, DM, CP, ADF, and NDF, because you're a lot more vocal on those areas.
Let's say reasonably. The moisture content's going to make a real difference as it comes out, but your fibrous material, I find that to be interesting. I can't tell from this. That's a control unit. So what's the next one look like?
All right, scroll down. Again, I wish we had a better person managing our data, because all of this should be side by side on one sheet of paper so you can read it.
I thought that was your job.
I'm just assembling the data. We need someone to manage it.
Yeah, well, that's something we can have Jim, Dr. Stein, help us with that, because he is very good at organizing those things. Yeah.
Can you scroll up just to see which number this one is?
This, I think, is bio only.
It is bio only. Juice and bio.
Okay, so scroll to the top. We have control, right? All right, now scroll down one and let us read what the test is. That one is juice only.
Only, okay.
But again, when I was speaking to the nutritionist on this, she was like, "You're getting great results, even if you did pass your ability to produce nutrients." So, and again, she explained that each animal is going to have a different requirement as far as the balance between fiber, protein, and digestibility. But she said these results would indicate that this would be a very beneficial addition to any type of nutrient system that you're feeding. In other words, this would provide a next level of fiber and protein. So it's kind of like a bump from your regular feed. So this would be something that you'd push or you provide to an animal either in a growth stage, reproduction stage, to increase or getting ready to send off for meat processing. So again, I don't have a lot to compare this to, and we didn't get all of the values that I were hoping, but this test will be repeated again for sure.
And I think
that's page 2. You want me to scroll down more?
Yep, go to combination.
Focus on just crude protein. That might give us at least a comparison. Seems like the crude protein's lower in this one.
But I think
bio.
And the next one
is bio only, I believe. So scroll all the way down again.
That's it. Or no, there's 4 pages. No, that's the last page.
Yep. So all right. So we just take crude protein. Bio only was we'll call it 2.6. Scroll up. And again, you remember the plant weight on this was 2.7. So again, we had more fibrous growth. 2.14. So go all the way up. I think the one that had the most on this was actually control. 2.68.
Yeah, 3.13.
Okay.
And we had 3 3.13.
I wonder if the control one was further in seed development.
No, it was less. It was short and stumpy. As a matter of fact, I could pull the picture up of it, whereas the other ones had, these giant tops on them with all the flowers and the seeds on it. So again,
so they were moving past their optimum time. So I would think your protein would start to drop a little.
Oh, definitely.
It might be going to the shoot. Oh, and
Yeah.
I guess it's a percentage too, right? It's a percentage based on dry matter.
Right, correct. But again, we had a greater amount of plant matter in the ones that were exposed to juice, biology, and combination. And so I look at that as like, again, proof in the pudding that this has something in it that produces the plant hormones to a point where it's ready to go to flower, ready to go to seed a lot quicker. So if we had harvested at the appropriate time, I tend to theorize that protein would have been higher than control because we wouldn't have had as much plant matter. I mean, literally, the wet material was 2.7 versus like 1.5. That's a significant increase in overall plant matter, and enough so that it would definitely skew the results. So while you guys continue to talk, I'll try to pick up that picture. Got to remember who I sent it to.
I'm really looking forward to next week and having Elaine's thoughts put on this as well, because I wonder if it is all about hormones, or maybe we need to expand our definition of what are plant hormones, because this may just be a lot about optimizing, maximizing nutrient uptake because you've got a greater root mass, and we've got other signals. Those roots are being able to send out better signals. It's going to grow faster because of it. It's hitting developmental stages. Not necessarily when we think of hormones, we may think of cytokinins and auxins and gibberellins and tricontinol and so on and so forth. But it just simply could be increased nutrient uptake.
I wonder if you're getting with all of the root ball, if they're not getting better interaction between the bacteria and the root filaments themselves.
And that's why I think we do have Jim White scheduled to join us, and some of his work with looking at the rhizophagy cycle and how essentially plants are farming bacteria for nutrient uptake might be another part of the equation.
Yeah.
All right, I just sent Ken a pic. Probably come through in a minute. I'll have to walk you through it. It isn't the great picture, the best picture to demonstrate biomass, because I really should have taken it at an angle to show how high the plants were. But you can definitely tell overhead the density. So the plant density in the individual pots. So it goes control on the left, unless he flips it upside down. It goes control, juice only, bio juice, bio only in that row. And each plant, each one of them is replicated with 3 pots. So they're just think of it as like a grid. We'll just wait for Ken to pull it up when he can.
Cool.
But I agree with you, Av, that there's definitely like increased root. So there we go. On the left is the control. You can see a lot of bare soil. The next one is juice. And then the one in the middle there between juice and bio, the third one from the left, you can tell it's got so much more biomass. And again, the wet weight alone was 2.7 versus 1.5 against control. So again, I think that this successfully demonstrates the fact that this has a wonderful effect on both plant maturity, root development, soil, increased soil structure, right across the board, right? So, and this too was cannabis extract in an arugula. nice spicy taste in the arugula, right?
There you go. You know, one thing we didn't really touch on here, but this might be a good time to discuss this, is the actual amount of water you end up needing to use. I don't think Billy really hit on that too much either. I don't know if he's noticed that, but you end up being able to accomplish this growth with like half the water that you would normally have to apply to your crops. So that's another thing, because of the stronger root system, the greater efficiency of the use, the bacteria doing its work. Again, that's another combination that we have to talk about there, that you become more efficient in the utilization of water.
Yep, and that's again due to root structure and aggregation, sped up aggregation due to increased bacterial populations. They can create biofilm faster and create those water storage capacity at a faster rate. So,
yep. And another thing you and I have talked about a lot, Leighton, is that your moisture also, with the use and application of the Muncher juice and combinations with your bioproduct as well, that moisture also remains in the soil. So you end up having generally better soil in the first place. So I mean, we could go down that rabbit hole for probably days, but.
And I guess another tangent from that, whether this is Muncher juice or fish brew, have you either of you applied your product on disease plants and seen that they had a response to perhaps outgrow their disease, like a powdery mildew? I'm thinking hop latent, and just thinking that, wow, I wonder if Muncher juice could really make hop latent go asymptomatic or whatever.
I have put it on some. I don't specifically know which diseases the plants have, but I have had some things going on, and they did remain alive, and the diseases went away. But again, that's just an anecdotal test that I've done at home, and this is more things that we need to do some follow up testing on. I've applied it to plants that were like trees that were just dead, and they ended up reviving. I've done a number of different applications with that, where plants that were just gone have come back to life. Plants that were like tomato plants, which normally you do your one growth and then they are gone, right? Well, I've had tomato plants continue to survive and bear fruit again. So there's a lot of odd things like that go on with it, and we need to do a lot more testing with that to see, now that we're working with Leighton on this. So we're gonna be seeing some amazing results.
And so, Av, to speak,
lab space. You got any lab space in your lab, Av? You got a lot of students that could be doing a lot of testing. You just got to get your hands on some Muncher juice.
Yeah.
Av, are you frozen?
Av looks frozen. He is not moving.
Yeah.
Av, can you hear us?
Is there anybody home? Av, you might have to jump off and jump back on. Yeah, there we go.
There he goes. An old trick.
Yep.
So I'll wait till Av gets back on, because I have experienced what I want to call virus suppression. So I've experienced virus suppression in redwoods, lemon trees, which were horribly infected with this virus. I forget the name of it. It makes the trunk crack and split open and ooze sap. It's really, really bad. I mean, I feel bad for these trees, because when it finally really takes hold, the tree just splits in half. Half of it falls on the ground, still somewhat alive. So I have been able to subdue it. Say again?
Is it a canker?
I believe it is, yes.
Yeah, okay.
And I've been able to suppress it to the point. Well, see, here's the problem is, again, these practices, nursery practices they don't sterilize between prunings. Like, you need to sterilize your cutting equipment between each tree, so you don't just spread it across. So these guys came in and spread it throughout the entire grove. I mean, and you could see that the ones that were just starting to be affected by it, they were seeing the little stress cracks on the bare bark. The other side of this coin is, out here in this California sun, if you do not have a decent canopy, the sunlight gets through and burns the trunk, burns the bark off, and then exposes that wood that then shows you that the wood is cracking due to this virus. So I was able to track the trees that were the least diseased against the ones that were literally breaking in half, and started comparing, like, okay, these ones weren't treated, these ones were treated. How do they look? And the ones that were treated were definitely had an advantage and a less obvious impact of the virus versus the ones that weren't treated. So I truly believe that, yes, a combination of fish brew, worm castings, compost, muncher juice combined together is going to be a really a heavy hitter, grand slam, whatever you want to call it. And again, it's diversity, right? You're using, all of the different components of both existing natural processes as well as utilizing fruits. And we've all had this conversation before about feeding plants. It's so much easier for them to utilize and absorb quicker and process quicker than they can with just, rocks, sand, silt, and clay.
Mm-hmm.
Ab, did you have any more questions, or otherwise we could start pulling up some test data reports?
I have a very unrelated question, and that,
okay.
and it's more about the vision of your company. Is it to actually produce muncher juice, or is it to more about getting this equipment, whether it's a benchtop or large scale operations, into municipalities and industries?
Yeah, we very much want to get the systems into whether municipalities used in agricultural communities, and I will say very specifically, and we as a company want to bring the world back to properly growing crops in a natural way, get us away from all these harsh chemical fertilizers and all this garbage. At the same time, I want to divert all this waste from landfill and all the horrible pollution and contamination that kind of thing is causing. And I'm just going to just say it in the broad term. I want to bring the world back to where it should be. That is the vision, and that's what I want to accomplish.
And my question was absolutely not altruistic at all. It was like, I know our audience members want this muncher juice, and how and when will they be able to access it?
Well, that's we are negotiating right now with some entities to get some systems installed on a small scale. I'm sure we could arrange to send some samples out to people, but we have limited capability of producing it at this time, because we have one system in operation right now that it can process up to 5 tons of waste a day, but it's also a question of where we can run the system itself. But as we move forward, we will be producing this on a large scale. And again, the two prong, we are going to be diverting the waste and turning it into something usable instead of just throwing it in a hole in the ground. And we're going to send it out to agricultural entities for growing crops, and we want to do both.
So,
and I'll take that a step further if I can and Leighton, I would like to have you speak some things in a little more detail about as we talk about continuing to use this product and applying it to soil. But we are basically going to be taking this material, applying it to the ground, and we are rebuilding the soil, making it viable again, bringing it back to the way it was thousands of years ago. And that is so important and so necessary, because when we talk about nutrient value, content, and the foods that we produce, everything that's been destroyed with the processes that are in use right now. We're, again, like Gary was kind of touching on in the beginning there when he was talking about how these inorganic fertilizers cause this growth, this explosion in productivity, but it's also destroyed the nutritional value of the foods that we produce. And the work here is to bring it back. And Leighton, maybe you want to talk a little more about the biology by which the process works to accomplish that.
But let me say this one thing is, I have possession of 55 gallons of this material. I don't need it all. I've got 4 5-gallon buckets, which I'm going to be breaking down and doing some I'm introducing diatoms to this product to see if I can knock the smell out without reducing the overall biology. In the experiment where I did, I took Muncher juice that had sat in the relative sun, because it was sunny during that period, and it was relatively warm. I pumped it into my truck into a 125-gallon brewer and stabilized it. And what I noticed when I uncorked the barrels was that it very much looked like a septic system. There was about 4 or 5 inches of crust, organic matter crust on the surface. I couldn't see what was on the bottom, unfortunately. I would assume that a lot of it had precipitated out, similar to some of the earlier experiments. But as soon as I put it in the brewer, 24 hours later, it smelled sweet. So that was an indication of how quickly that can be aerobically stabilized, which is really good. So Mo will tell you anecdotally that he's had products sitting around for a year or two in the sun, out of the sun, whatever. And as soon as he puts it in the soil, it reactivates.
Yeah.
So now it's a matter of, all right, how do we keep it active so that if and when somebody wants to start bottling this and putting it on store shelves, that the containers don't either explode or shrink in on themselves. We've still got to balance the incredible BOD of this product, because Mo will tell you, and so with Gary, that if you let this sit long enough, it actually sucks the air out of the and it turns into a vacuum. So that's a whole nother mystery that we've got to really unlock. But the start of that is to introduce diatoms into their product at various dilution ratios to see if we can find that sweet spot. So I definitely wanted to touch on that. But yeah, as far as like transitioning soil, no, this is ideal. And I think that the biggest problem we have, and I stated it earlier, was that the municipalities and the powers that be don't give a shit. They don't care about the soil. They only care about lining their pockets with the money that they're getting paid to take the food waste. And until there's teeth in the laws that fine them for this irresponsibility, they're not going to be a target client because they don't care. So we've got to find organic farmers, communities. I was talking to the Irvine company about thinking about putting one of these in, because they have a tremendous amount of retail stores where they could actually collect the waste, charge their retail clients, their customers, to haul off that waste, process it, and use that process to treat their land. I mean, Irvine company owns fucking Irvine, California.
Yeah.
And if anyone has the nads to search it, please look at their mission statement. Irvine, since the guys put together the money, I think it's 71 or maybe sometime in the 70s, planted over 1 million trees in Irvine to start to build what they want to call as a futuristic, more sustainable, getting humans back in contact with their environment. So they're the perfect company. And that's the kind of target audience or client that we're going to start shifting toward looking at, as well as some of these angel investors. And there was a food group they're working on up north in Fowler. Those kinds of companies are going to be the ones that really adopt this methodology. And the other ones will be small scale landscapers. They can go house to house and take your food and yard waste, process it, and then reapply it to your land. In my mind, that would be an amazing, huge impact, because you know how many lawns and landscapes are, I don't know what percentage of the earth is covered by those, but it's significant. So, again, those are more potential beneficial clients that can afford to buy a small scale bench top, some water tanks and a pump sprayer, and have a huge impact on the environment out of the gate. So anyway, that's the goal. But if anyone in the audience was interested in getting some of this, I don't think I can send it to you. Maybe I'll smuggle some. Oh, I'm not driving up. I'm flying up now. Shit. Oh well. Well, I could bring 3-ounce bottles, right?
There we go. And remember, you dilute it. So if you give a 3-ounce concentrate, that'll actually go a little ways.
Yeah, it would be 30 ounces of water, correct? So that would work.
Leighton, one of the things that I'm going to try is I'll take a couple of drums back to Nebraska. I grew up in the Great Plains, and I want to see what it does on wheat and milo. So we can take a small section of a field, take maybe 5 acres and treat it and see what happens with it in comparison to the rest. They're doing no-till farming, but it's chemical no-till.
Ooh.
So they're getting the fertilizer, they're using the glyphosate to control the weeds. I want to see if we can break that cycle. And my intention is to have the young man that's farming it for us turn our farm into a section where he's going to be doing more of the organic farming. I don't know that he's going to like that, but if I can prove to him he can make more money and work less, then I think maybe he'll listen a little more.
Yep.
All right, Gary, when you're ready, let's connect him to Kyle Moat. We had Kyle on the show. We talked about one application of fish brew, increased yields, increased nutrient density, increased energy, increased mineral uptake, increased nutrient across the board.
Decreased nitrogen use.
Decreased no nitrogen, zero nitrogen use.
That's a good decrease.
Zero pesticides used. No problems. Plant health was there. So I think in many ways that, if he can talk to Kyle about this, because Kyle was scared shitless. He was like, jumping off a cliff because he's planted 200 acres of corn. If he loses that 200 acres, he's out of fucking business, right? He can't afford to take a hit like that. So, having Kyle with the confidence now to talk to someone who does not have that confidence in switching might be hugely beneficial. And then if he combines that with the application of fish brew, you're going to get the triple whammy. You're going to get just what Kyle got. You're going to have incredible plant growth, incredible nutrient, incredible pest resistant, across the boards. And like you said, if I can show to him he can make more money, work less hard, why wouldn't he? Right. And that was always the biggest sell with farmers was they don't get a penny saved as a penny earned. They just don't fucking get it. And so that's where Kyle would come in and knock him around a little and say, dude, look, I saved my bushel price per production of corn was a quarter of what the other guys paid. And I had a bigger yield.
Yeah.
Fucking no brainer to me, man.
Yep.
And perhaps the breaking down of glyphosate will also reduce fusarium, which should also reduce the inhibition of manganese uptake.
Yep. Yep. As well as crown rot, all of those. All of those.
What type of application rates are we talking about here?
So we use 5 gallons per acre, diluted to whatever your spray equipment is required with fish brew.
Okay.
Mo is 10-to-1 dilution ratio. So that's significant. So my gut feeling, I don't want to speak on this, Mo, unless you've got.
Yeah, well, I'll even say, so right now we've been going at 10-to-1 on the dilution rate, and we're in the process, we're going to test diluting it even further because one of the entities that we're discussing, they want to see us go up to 100-to-1 dilution rate. So we're just gradually stepping it up to see where that line's going to be. And so far, like I said, we've been running just at the 10-to-1 at the moment. Then we're going to go 20, 30, 40, 50, and we're just going to keep it going and see how far.
The breakdown of glyphosate was at a 10-to-1.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I was just talking about the dilution to apply the product. Yeah, the glyphosate. I'd have to look at the white paper to see what the concentrations were. And actually, and we'll be happy to send that over to you. But it was we did a low, medium, and high level concentration of the glyphosate, and that was just specifically put into here's the plant matter, here's the glyphosate levels, and then they processed it. Yeah, and then just showed the reduction.
Yeah, the ratio when we're talking about diluting 10-to-1 or 50-to-1 is just on the product as it comes out.
The output.
Eventually. So you send it as a concentrate, but dilute it down at that point.
Yeah.
But when we process a glyphosate, it was with just what we use all the time in the digester.
And you know what? Something else that I think we need to speak on here is the fact that the combination of bacteria that Mo uses is very similar to the species that I use that solubilize and degrade. So they're not just decomposers. There's
Right.
a whole suite of these guys. And anytime I've been in a situation where I've got to clean up coal tar, hydrocarbons, atrazine, I'm using very, very similar suite of organisms that he does. He's just taking it to another level. So again, this juice will degrade compounds that you do not want in your soil over a period of time based on the dilution. So if you have horribly polluted soils, you'd probably want to keep the dilution ratio up or low so that you're getting a greater application, a heavier application of the product. But again, that's the key to this whole thing, is that you're not just dealing with decomposers. You're dealing with organisms that can start to break these things back down to their original safe forms, whether it's atrazine, Roundup, it doesn't matter. So yeah, it's a brave new world that Mo's uncovered here. For sure.
Yeah, like I said, it's pretty exciting. And the other thing that, to just go a little more onto your point there, is if when you're growing plants, you're growing your crops, you want that concentrate to be more diluted, and we've seen that, and actually with poor Ron at his house up in Tahoe, when we applied the straight concentrate to his plants all around his house, and just everything went into shock. I mean, it was crazy. It came back, but that was when we were like, ooh, maybe that's not such a good idea. So when it's important for plant growth to have that dilution level. But when you
reach out, Ecosphere Sciences, get a hold of these guys.
Yeah, we'll make sure we get the web address, email, phone number, all that put up here. But yeah, if you're going to be accomplishing a soil remediation and regeneration types of thing, more concentrated, the better. So absolutely agree. There we go. ecospheresciences.com.
So I don't know if we have time to pull up those biologicals. Again, they probably don't mean a lot to the audience. And again, once we get our act together in assembling all of this data, we can make it in a more presentable bars and graphs and colors and stuff that's easier to read than just these numbers across lines. So Ken, were there a lot of questions? Oh, only appears to be 3 questions. Maybe we should go into the questions now, because I'm sure they're going to lead to a deeper conversation. But definitely want to respect these guys' time and Av's time, because it is getting late back on the East Coast.
And actually, Silly Lily's got all 3 questions.
All right, Silly.
Does this equipment need to be outdoors to enable oxidization, or can it be used indoors? Or is it outdoors only? Does weather conditions, rain/snow, make a difference? Silly question, just curious.
Not a silly question at all. But the machine can be run indoors or outdoors. And we take through our aeration system, we just take ambient air and then we highly concentrate it to oxygenate the material. So yeah, it doesn't matter. It can be indoor, outdoor. It's actually, you want it to be in some type, depending where you are geographically, you want to be in some type of enclosed environment, typically for temperature regulation, because it costs a lot. If you're in a cold environment and you have the system outdoors, it will cost a lot more to maintain the heat in the system. Now, we don't do super high heat. We don't do any high pressure or anything like that, but we do still have to maintain a heat level within the digester and the aeration tank. So answer to that, yes, it's beneficial to have some type of enclosure that can be at least somewhat insulated.
Okay, and then the next question would be, would this Muncher juice be available in Canada, which we've kind of already covered? Are you marketing the Muncher as juice or both?
Both, definitely. Yeah, and We are the mixtures that I use are actually Canada compliant, so we will be able to bring it up to Canada at some point. I would have to check and see on the legalities of us being able to like if we were to ship any of the product we have right now up there. I don't know how legal that would necessarily be. Happy to look into it and see if we could get you some.
And the last one, can you dry it without losing its viability? Easier to ship?
Yes, we can. There's we can extract liquid from it and maintain just a dry product at the end. We actually have done that a number of times, and I typically the reason we've been maintaining more of the liquid lately is just more of our clients have been requesting that for testing and whatnot. So that's what we've been doing. But yes, you can absolutely separate it. The solid is super viable, and it contains all the same bacterial action and nutrient, just like the liquid.
And that's it for the questions, guys, unless somebody throws some new ones up in the chat. Did you want to bring up the test results from Ecosphere at all?
Yeah, we can definitely bring up the biologicals. I don't know what order I sent those to you, and I think it's all the rugula based. So is there one that shows all of the test data from start till end, or were they on separate reports?
It's all on separate reports, but let's bring them up and I'll just work our way through them.
All right,
Okay.
Sounds good. Yeah, we can skip through the language.
Okay, that was all on the first one you sent me. This is the second one. That's all language.
Are you sure if you scroll down, there's not the actual numbers reports?
Let's see. This one, it's
No, it's just language. Okay.
Here's number reports.
All right, here we go. All right, can you blow that up a little? All right, so this one is dated 2/11, and also we have. Okay, so this is the one on the extract. So we have my extract. So that's a combination of fish brew, worm castings, and my compost. Then we have anaerobic juice. We have aerobic juice.
Mm-hmm.
Bio only and bio juice combination, not as important, but scroll a little bit more and you'll see further to you move it to the left because there's one more test.
Okay.
All the way on the right.
Let me just back it down. There we go.
Yep. And then we have digester silt. Okay, so where's the one I didn't send you one that had the aerobic stabilization. But needless to say, let's talk about this real quick. All right. So anaerobic juice, you can see the level of bacteria is significantly higher, 1817. All right. That is what is the key is we have not lost a lot of the bacteria because we made it aerobic. The aerobic juice, we've decreased bacteria. And then bio only and bio juice. Okay, so those are here again in this test. I was trying to determine if adding juice to my biology was detrimental or beneficial. And obviously, as you can see, it was beneficial. It did not hurt my biology. It actually increased it. And digester silt, we're not going to even talk about. So we'll slide down the test down to F to B ratio, which is most important to a lot of people in the soil food web class. But we'll buzz through it. Look, I got a 3.0, but that's due to reduced bacteria, not due to a large volume of fungal hyphae. Whereas the next column over, he has a greater level of fungal hyphals at 375, but he only has a 0.21 because he has such high bacteria. All right, so these kinds of relationships are important to understand, but also take with a grain of salt. All right, because you can skew results very easily by feedstocks, time of processing, et cetera, et cetera. All right, but again, we had a slight reduction when we scroll up. I can't see the top, Ken. Just up a little bit. I want to make sure I'm discussing right. So aerobic juice. We had a slight decrease in the aerobic juice, in the F to B ratio, as well as the fungal biomass. Bio only, you can see, has a nice biomass of 497. We reduced it only a fraction by introducing the juice to it, which is, again, really good indicators this stuff plays nice. Now the F to B ratio went down, obviously, because the bacteria went up so high at 2,183 against a 493 fungal biomass. We cut our F to B ratio almost in half. Shit, I got to drink some water.
Yeah, don't hurt yourself, Leighton.
All right, so let's go to total protozoa. My extract, pretty decent, up in the millions. The anaerobic juice had a decrease in flagellates. And again, when we're trying to build soil structure, those guys are important to build biomass. Now, aerobic juice had a really wonderful level of flagellates, as you can see at our total protozoa at 252,296. Bio only had a wonderful at 2.6 million. We had a slight reduction in protozoa, less than half on when we introduced the juice. So again, it's playing nice within the soil food well realm. Let's go down to bacterial feeding nematodes, which I think this is a really important highlight. As you can see, the introduction of juice to biology increased the number of nematodes. So, again, these are really, really good plus signs to the fact that this material, this juice, can be applied to very biologically rich, regenerative, organic agricultural practices with no adverse effect. And that's always been a big point that I've stuck by, is trying to introduce these organic products that people ask me to beta test. Is the first test I do is the introduction of that product into a very healthy biological system to see if there is any negative effects to it. And more often than not, it has tremendous negative effects. Yep. So again, I was really, really excited when we started getting this test data back that what he's doing is again benefiting an existing soil system. Not only can it regenerate dead soil or dead dirt into soil, it can also add additional value to a very biologically rich organic regenerative facility. So is there another test?
Diggity Dank just threw out a question there about how long would it take for predatory nematodes to start making an appearance, and I can go ahead and address that real quick if we can take a moment.
Yeah.
So basically, what happens here is we're encouraging the growth of your beneficial nematodes. So that growth with the high level of your beneficial nematodes actually keeps the population of your destructive nematodes down, because the beneficial nematodes consume the
right. So
maybe Leighton, you want to speak a little bit.
Yeah. So what he's talking about, predatory nematodes. So predatory nematodes eat other nematodes. Root feeders are what you were talking about. So the increased beneficial aerobic soil that this creates pushes back the ability for the anaerobic root feeding nematodes to take hold. The understanding that I have is that predatory nematodes' primary food source is root feeders. So if you do not have a high root feeder population, you're not going to get a high or an increased level of predatory nematodes. In reality, you don't even really need them. If you have fungal feeders and bacterial feeders, you don't need predatory nematodes because you're not trying to keep your nematode population in balance. So again, will you see predatories? Absolutely. As those population of bacterial and fungi feeders increase, then yes, you are going to start to see predatory nematodes move in to feed on the good guys. But generally speaking, the only time you see a high level of predatory nematodes is in an anaerobic soil where you've got a tremendous amount of feedstock in root feeding nematodes.
Yeah, and our process overall just discourages those.
Yes,
you're aerobically treating. So yeah.
Yep. You're building aggregates. You're building what we call gas exchange. So that's air down into the soil. That's CO2 out of the soil. That is the biggest and fastest way to turn anaerobic compacted soil or dirt into aerobic healthy soil that allows for the explosion of these beneficial soil food web creatures, organisms.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we got about 5 minutes left, Ken. No more questions. Any comments, Av, that you'd like to make?
No, it's all good.
I think what Av ought to do is work with us to start a Canadian company so that we can start building them up there.
It's the same thing with fish brew. Both of them have to come up north here.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, Av, I reached out to Keith about the gentleman that you had contact him about helping support his permitting process up there.
Mm-hmm.
I forget who that person was, but can you give him a love tap? Because
Sure.
Keith's reached out a few times and has not heard anything back. And Keith is very, very much interested in getting involved up there. I mean, he was shipping trout up there for years.
Yep.
And so he has the logistics to do it. It's just a matter of getting through your damn government's permitting process.
Sounds good. Yeah.
All right. Well, is there anything that you two, Gary and Mo, want to follow up on or revisit while we only have 4 minutes left?
Well, one thing I would like to go, I know Ken already popped up our website, but I would encourage people to contact us and maybe Ken, if you can pop some of this stuff, information up again, ecospheresciencesinc.com, and our phone number would be great as well. Let's see, it's email us at info@ecospheresciences.com, and let me pull up the phone number again real quick here. If we can just get that, make sure that
here it is. It's 775-990-4568. So again, take out your pen. 775-990-4568.
Yep. And again, that information is on our website, ecospheresciences.com. So please reach out. We'll be happy to answer questions. And if we can get you any samples of Muncher juice that we have right now, we would definitely give it a go. So yeah, thank you everyone for attending. This has just been awesome. Any final words, Gary? Anything you'd like to follow up with?
Well, I noticed the phone number that came up in the chat there was the numbers got transposed. It's 775-990-4568.
Right.
And it's 777.
Oh,
sure.
Ken, if we can,
And
maybe
it's 775-990. Ken.
Yeah.
99. Okay. Yeah, sure. I'm trying to do this. And that's.
I'm sure you're doing like probably half a dozen things at the same time here. So.
Well, I am trying to. Let's see if I can get it right. So 775-990-4568.
Yep.
Okay, so that should be right.
There you go. Take a screenshot. And I'm sure, just so you guys have a heads up, this is recorded, so it will be getting a lot of views as time it allows people to sit down and enjoy the show for today. And thank you guys so much for what you guys are doing, the awareness that you're bringing, the benefit to properly handling these materials, and the fact that you guys have been diehards in this process of 12 plus years that you've been going through this. So congratulations on sticking to it and getting to this point. And with any luck, 2023 is your breakout year, and you start selling equipment, and we can really start producing more of this stuff.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Leighton, Ken. everybody, thank you for having us here today. It's really been great, and we appreciate the opportunity to help push our message out there and bring awareness. And that's also Leighton. Thanks for working with us on the science. We also greatly appreciate having you here. So we look forward to more.
Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure. It's
Appreciate the time.
wonderful journey.
I think we need to book the next date. You guys, what 3 months for the next data set to come out, and then we can bring you all back on with some more data sets.
Ken, I will definitely keep you posted on that, because these next round of tests are going to be, every test that we're doing is now going to be getting longer and longer to get the data back. So because they're more complex, and again, growing plants to determine, it takes a lot of time. That test took over 2 months or more than 2 months from start to completion. So 3 is probably not enough. I would say probably more realistically, like 6 months from now, we get these guys back on, and we should have a lot more data, as well as we've proofed out what we've already got as a primary data.
And have more set up where you actually hire somebody to do the charts and stuff like that, and send me the stuff a few days earlier than 20 minutes before the show would help too.
I'm sorry, Ken. You know how fucking busy I am. I just trying to get through this and one other project. Should be all wrapped up by beginning of next week, and then I should be able to catch my breath and be a little bit more.
Right on.
Then we bring you to Edmonton.
Right. Then we go to Edmonton. And speaking of which, the girl never got back to me. I tried to switch a flight from Sunday to Monday because I have a previous engagements I forgot about on Sunday.
Okay.
So if you can nudge her, that would be great.
Perfect. Will do.
All right. Were there any announcements anybody had?
I think it's great keep to get some information from Billy about those that trial. I think that's going to be pretty amazing just to see if the Muncher juice makes the plant mature earlier. And
well, again, Luna just got a package from me where she's got liquid and she's got solid, and so she's going to set up a trial when she has time, and that'll be, again, we'll be able to hopefully test start to finish, as well as cannabinol, cannabinoid, terpene profiles, to see what else it's affecting beyond just
And even reaching out to Mr. Toad, I know he's always playing, and that boy knows his stuff, so we might want to get some in his hands as well. I'm sure he'd love to run some trials.
Perfect, absolutely. Have him share, create a group text Ken, and I'll get his address and ship him off some.
Okay, sounds good. And Gary, Mo, thank you so much. Do you guys have any events or anything you're going to be at? Is there other ways where people can meet up with you guys? Anything like that?
Well, we're going to be right now. We're preparing to do a full service on the machine. We're going to be taking it up to up north in the Salinas area. So we will probably be able to show people the system up there once we're set up there. Yeah.
Oh, that'd be fantastic. Well, keep us informed, and then everybody can reach out at Ecosphere. They have the phone number now, and arrange for tours, etc. Because this is a technology our planet definitely needs. And thank you so much, you guys, for creating this, Mo, for the dedication that you've had.
Thank you.
Can't say enough, brother, that you guys are amazing.
Hey, thanks. It's been quite a journey, and it's a worthwhile one. Just like you said, the planet needs it.
Oh, and the fun has just begun.
So and next week we have Dr. Elaine. She's going to be talking more about this. The week after that, we have the Invisible Gardener on. Then we have James White on. And then it's slipping my mind, but we're booked out for the next 6 weeks, guys. Anyway, the Gerald Pollock, the Master of Water, and then we also have Dennis Meehan coming in a little bit after that as well, talking about the research he's doing with water as well.
Great.
Nice. Tune in. And thanks again, Ken, for all the work that you do behind the scenes.
Yeah,
it was always a pleasure, my friend, my co-host, and guys, thank you so much. And I'm sure I'll see you both soon.
Absolutely.
Thanks,
We're going to see a lot more of us than ever before.
Yeah, man.
Sounds great. Okay, I'm going to end the broadcast, guys. So if you want to stick around in the back room for a minute, we can have a further chat. But everybody, peace out. Love you all.